Hi, everyone, and happy holidays. Welcome to the final episode of the top 12 questions of 2020. Thank you, everyone that contributed by submitting questions and asking them along the way. And thank you, everyone that has been tuning in each week to ask follow-up questions in the comments and say hello. So I am excited this week to answer questions 4, 3, 2, 1 with my good friend, Brittany Parker. So without further ado, I'm going to bring Brittany Parker on the show. Hey, Brittany, and welcome. How's it going tonight?
Hey, it's going good. I've got to say, you really have this live stuff down. I'm really impressed.
Thanks. I honestly have a lot of fun doing it. It makes me happy each week. Every Wednesday, I'm really excited I'm like, oh, today's the day we're going to do the live chat.
Yeah, I feel like I'm on TV or like you're a news reporter or something.
Nice. Hey, maybe that's like a backup career. So Brittany, I know you, and unfortunately, we haven't had the opportunity to paddle in a while. But you are one of the inspirations behind, how I got River SUPs going and wanting to teach more people and get more people in the River SUP community. So for those that don't know you, can you start by giving us a little bit of an introduction?
Yeah. I have one question.
Yeah.
How do you tell? Can you tell when people are watching?
Yeah, totally. It tells you up at the top. There's like a little number and it keeps there's more people keep tuning in.
All I see is a clock.
Oh, it might not tell you on yours.
But we are live, right? Like there's people.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, you're good. Here, I'll get someone to say hello.
Okay. Because I'm not convinced. Oh yeah. Okay. It says on Facebook it's live now. Okay.
Yeah.
I got it. All right. All right.
I like it. All right.
Sorry. What
No,
was your
you're good.
question?
No, you're good. So Brittany, for the people that don't know you yet, tell us just a little bit more about who you are.
Yeah. Okay. So my name is Brittany Parker. I am from Rifle, Colorado, and I have been stand-up paddling since about 2011. But I was a raft guide for a couple years before that, and I grew up in Colorado, and my first experience stand-up paddling was on the river, and I fell in love with it instantly. And I soon found out that I could surf on the river, and um,
Right, sorry.
yeah, everyone noticed Rita's tree in the background that she painted. It's really good. And I didn't know this was an ugly sweater party. I would have dressed for the occasion.
It was a last minute decision.
It was a wise choice. You chose wisely. Okay.
Thanks, Ben. Okay, so
Sorry.
river surfing. We left off at river surfing.
River surfing. Yeah, river surfing. I found out that you could surf rivers, and in Glenwood Springs, which is just 30 minutes east of my hometown, I found out that there was a surf wave there, and so started getting into that. I found Badfish at one of the whitewater events. They let me borrow boards, and they were super welcoming. And then they asked me to be on the team, and I was on the team for a couple of years, and then I started working for them in marketing. And we've been tied ever since. And then let's see, and then I just traveled around a lot and competed and just kept paddling and teaching. So I'm also in level 5 ACA stand-up paddle instructor, and I own a business with my business partner Natalie Zollinger. And so we did a whole tour and taught all around the country. We taught whitewater stand-up paddling, we taught river surfing, and now we are still doing that, and I'm still teaching, and I am still surfing a lot. We made a surfing film. Man, there's a lot to go. It's hard to like sum it all up.
Totally. Well, first off, like I want to mention the surfing film. Some of my friends, especially at kayaking festivals around here or paddling festivals, when we've been hanging out or it's been raining, have curled up in the back of my van or the back of my truck, and we watch Can I Surf That almost religiously. And some of my students know, and I think Brittany, you know that I actually have a little workout plan that's designed specifically to the Can I Surf That video to inspire me for paddling season. So who knows, maybe I'll have to launch that this year.
You should.
You know what? Maybe that's a spring, March. I'll launch that.
Get people ready.
Totally. And so, Brittany, you and I met. Let's go quickly to your teaching, because you've been doing it for a long time. Like you were teaching here in 2015, and that was one of the first river courses I got to take on the Can, right? And so that's amazing to see where the sport has grown. Now there's so many people participating in my area. I'm not the only paddler. There's, people aren't looking at the sport like, what do you mean you want us to wear a quick release leash? There's all this common practice and this large growing community. And I think way back in the day, you were a big match that started that fire. And so thank you for helping us start that.
Thanks.
Up here.
You're also an inspiration, though. I mean, you've really taken off up there, and you're growing the community at a rapid pace, and you've got something really cool as well. So
and I can't thank you, and I can't wait for you to get to when you're allowed to come back up. We'll have to do a collaboration. Definitely. Throw back to when we were on the Can together. And Brittany, you mentioned in your introduction a little bit about your partnership with Natalie Zollinger and River to River. So I know that there's been some new and exciting things for River to River and with your partnership. So why don't you take this opportunity to tell us a little bit more about that before we get into our questions?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so Natalie and I, River to River started as just an instructional business, and we would travel around and partner up with outfitters and or stores and teach at whitewater parks and stuff all around the country. And we took a break for a couple of years because we had, just life stuff happen, and we are firing things up again. And we started a podcast called the Eddie Out Podcast, because one of the things we love so much about teaching all around the country was the conversations that we would have after our lessons, and we just love how much the river brings everyone together, and how no matter where you're from or who you are, you'll speak the same language, So we decided, we've been talking about a podcast for years, and we finally just got the courage, and we're just because we kept making excuses and hemming and hawing, and we need all the nice gear, we need this, we need that. But we decided, forget it, we're just going to start. No more excuses. We're going to start, even if it sounds crappy, whatever, we're just going to start. So we did. It's called the Eddie Out Podcast. And we've already got, 5 episodes, with one on the way that will come out tomorrow, a new one. And we're full steam ahead. Yeah, having so much fun. And and we got some stickers. We did some rebranding. We're doing some events this summer, and I'll be hosting a lot of river surfing stuff. I want to host a lot of affordable river surfing events, and just make it really accessible for people, and just try to help grow the sport and spread knowledge about river safety. And that's something that Natalie and I are really passionate about, is safety on the river, getting people out there and starting everyone off right. Thanks, Andrew. Miss you, buddy. So and we've got some other things in the works. So if you don't already follow us on Instagram, or you haven't checked out our website, or if you sign up for our newsletter, you'll get a lot of exclusive stuff on the newsletter, stuff like workouts and playlists and stuff that we're enjoying. But also you'll get updates on events that are coming up. We've got some women's specific events, river surfing events, whitewater events, all kinds of stuff. So there's Natalie.
Hey, Nat.
Hi, buddy.
Nat, hopefully I'm gonna have you on in the new year. Keep going.
Yeah. So we're just pushing forward, and we're really excited. And now's the time. I just went back to college, so I'm kind of balancing the two. But luckily for me, summertime I won't be in class, so I'll be able to just focus fully on paddling and teaching. And yeah, I'm super excited.
Nice, awesome.
We're super
I'm
excited.
Nice. Well, I'm excited to see what you girls get up to. And I'm excited for opportunities to connect once we can get back across the border. Yeah, I'm stoked. I love how Nat always comes into the show like full caps, like, hey guys, I'm here, I'm excited. It always, makes me smile. It almost stalls me for a second because I just get like cheered right up. So let's get into it. We are going to keep telling some stories and sharing a little bit more. And, before we answer the questions, I think we should really answer our friend Matt's question here. When are we going back to Ecuador? Well, let's just let things settle out. Once things settle out and the first round of people start traveling, then maybe I'll start getting some trips and some exciting stuff on the books. But I miss you, Matt, and I hope that we do get a paddle together soon. What about you, Britt? Are you on the same page there?
Yeah, same page. Same.
Yep, nice. All right, so here we go. Why are we here tonight? We had some awesome people, and the questions you might have seen in my story today were read by a few of my awesome students who have asked those questions, and from my friend Kim. However, it was I added them all together. There was multiple people that all asked the same question, and that's how they made their spots in the top 4. So, first question for you to take it away, Brittany. Why does my paddleboard keep flipping when I'm entering and exiting stronger currents?
Yeah, that's a good question. And it's something that I think Rita and I don't want to speak for you, but I'm sure you see a lot, is when people are beginning or starting out, their boards tend to flip a little bit more often. And typically what is happening is that you are waiting too much on your downstream or your upstream edge, depending on if you're entering into an eddy or exiting into an eddy, because everyone knows, well, I hope if you're paddling on a river, I hope that you know that eddies move upstream. And so that means you need to counteract when entering into an eddy. You need to make sure that you are waiting on your upstream edge so that current rushes underneath your board versus flooding over the downstream edge. And then just the opposite, when you're going out into the current, you want to make sure that you are leaning on your downstream edge, and that way the water goes underneath. But what can happen what can make your board actually flip is that you're leaning into your falls too much, instead of
totally
waiting on your high side. You're just leaning into it and you're just going for it, which is fine. Like, go for it, fall sometimes, yeah, but leaning into it too much. And then another one is, what I've seen a lot is people grabbing onto the high side. So as they're falling, they'll grab onto the high side to try to catch themselves, but they just end up pulling the board over on top of themselves. So I'd say just fall. If you're gonna fall, if you're going in and you're to the point where you're grabbing the edge of your board, you're just gonna go in anyway. So might as well just embrace the fall and the swim and just go in. So I would say, like, those are the main reasons. Is just leaning too much into it, and you just got to really put some weight on that. You've got to put some weight on that high side of your board, or the part of the board that's starting to rise up. So just countering balance.
I used to be known with them, like when the old school boards that were still, long and straight. I used to be known for that. I'd call it the Canadian log maneuver. The board would start tipping, and I'd like pick my foot up and actually push on that edge, and it'd almost be right on the side. And, you're right. If you could do anything to push it down. I really agree with what you said there, Brittany, about, people almost committing and kicking the board over with them, like over falling. And so I have nothing to add there. The biggest thing is make sure you're leaning downstream, letting the board not eat that edge, and, trying to keep that board flat when you fall so that you fall off it and it doesn't fall with you. And so to elaborate a little bit on that question, sometimes the board flips and it's in a bigger rapid, right? And it might just be because of how the waves tossed us as we dropped in. And so if that board does flip in a bigger rapid, what are some tips for getting it back over and, tips for getting back on?
Yeah. So just so everyone knows who experiences this, this sucks for everyone when this happens. I think everyone's pretty bummed when their board flips because it is a pain. It's not easy to flip, especially whitewater boards because they are so wide. And if you're small like Rita and I, it can be really hard to get that board flipped over. So something that I've learned that helps is by going to the more narrow parts of the board, whether it's the nose or the tail. Personally, I like going to the tail and flipping the board there because then it's a little bit easier to get that back over versus trying to grab all the way over to the other side of a 36-inch wide board. It's really hard. So going to the back of your board and flipping over that way is yeah, Jackie, it's not just you. It sucks. It's just hard. It's just a hard thing. And it happens to everyone. Yeah. So that's the biggest one. And I also try to make sure that I'm not trying to flip it. I'm not trying to flip it against the current. Like I'm trying to make sure the current is helping me, is going to help push that board back over.
Totally. Work with the river, work with the waves, work with the current to flip it. Just like you said, I like to go to the tip or tail. Gear on the board makes it way harder to flip if it does. Sometimes it's really nice if your friends are around and they're able to just, come by and flick one of the edges for you because it is actually easier for them to flip it than it is for you in the water. So, paddle with a buddy, practice helping each other out is a tip. And then, practice flipping it and getting back on even in a flat water environment, right? The more comfortable you get, or a class 1 lazy river that you feel comfortable in, the more you practice flipping it, righting it, getting back on, falling with a flat board and falling off your board, the more comfortable you're going to feel when it actually does happen in bigger water. And it is more critical for you to pull it off.
Yeah, Natalie and I always make sure we do drills and make sure that everyone's practices getting on their board and knows how to get on their board and before. And I think what I see too, when people are trying to get on their board, they'll sometimes they'll try to grab the other edge and pull themselves over that way, and they end up flipping their board that way too, just trying to get on. So something that I always try to tell people to hold on to the handle if you need to hold on to something. And then I try to make myself, I get as flat. Oh, this camera is backwards and it's messing me up. So I try to so this is the board, this is my body, I'm like this, I'm trying to get as flat as possible, and I give myself a good kick with my back legs and then try to use that momentum to like get my on my board, because you do have PFDs on, it's kind of bulky and it's not an easy thing to do. So always make sure that you've got that down and just practice in flat water like Rita said. That's really important.
Nice. Awesome. I think we've covered the flipping and the writing and taking it into some bigger rapids. So I hope that answered all of your questions, guys, when it comes to flipping. If you're looking for some more tips, Jackie threw one out in the comments there. I'll leave it there for you guys to have a read. And she's right. It is all about using leverage, especially if you are a smaller person. All right. So moving down to question number 3. We want to know, how do we progress into bigger rapids? And safely, maybe, is a great word to add into that statement. Take it away, Britt.
I think another good question. It's important to really know your limitations, and you're not going to go from a class 2 to a class 4 section. So working your way up from class 2 to 3 minus to 3 to 3 plus as much as you can, but obviously we don't always have all of that accessible. I find that if you're nervous about a rapid that's maybe a little bigger, trying it on your knees first, and then if you have the option, go on your knees, shake out the jitters, hike back up, and do it again, and go on your feet. But one thing I think is to get really comfortable in your staggered stance, which is, so we have our neutral stance where we're camera. Our neutral stance, and then our staggered stance, which is our whitewater stance, and getting used to just dropping that one knee down, your back knee, getting used to dropping that knee and landing in a low brace, and just practicing that on flat water and dropping to those knees, not to both knees, just to one knee, and that'll give you a little extra stability, little extra brace, and that's a good skill to have when going through whitewater. And then you're not having to, and sometimes I find being on both of my knees, I don't feel very stable. So I like to have more leverage from being higher up. So just being able to drop a knee whenever I'm feeling unstable is really nice, but just one knee. So we can show you, maybe we can send a picture or a video of us doing something like that, so you can get a better visual of what that looks like. I think another thing to help you progress into bigger rapids is just really practicing on what rapids you have and getting comfortable with focusing on getting speed when going into rapids and paddling really hard, getting your momentum going, because the bigger you go, the more momentum you're going to really want to break through those bigger waves. So practicing getting a lot of speed when you're paddling up to a rapid to make sure that you can break right through those waves is really, really helpful. And so just maybe pretending like all of these rapids are a little bigger than they actually are. And I kind of like to paddle super fast into them, and I like just pretend, and like sometimes I'll yell out a little like I don't know, what would you, like a battle cry or something.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. And I just go for it. But obviously know your limitations. Don't, if you're in a place where you really feel like you aren't comfortable, I mean, just don't, there's no need to push yourself past your abilities. There's no ego in stand-up paddling, or there shouldn't be, because I mean, we're paddling on water standing up. It's a funny thing. Like, don't take it too seriously, and just have a nice, like, just go easy on yourself and be patient and work your way up.
Totally. I want to go back a little bit to the talking about being able to drop to one knee. And I want to talk to that because I think you're right. Being able to paddle on your feet through things, and my little slogan, commit to your feet and clean the meat. That's what I like to say. But that committing to your feet, but having that tool of dropping your knee, to me, it's that we're using that knee almost like you said as a brace, right? And so being able to get in and out of that position as a fluid moment versus being sort of stuck and hunkered down in that kneeling position, regardless of, you always want to be free and able to move. and our paddles are long, and we can see more when we're on our feet. And so, I like to practice. It's like a back lunge. It's part of my my can I surf that workout? So the back lunges, right? Being able to drop down, but keeping my toes engaged so that I can paddle through back to my staggered stance and keep paddling on through the rapid, pending that, I'm still on my feet.
Yeah, and adding to what Rita says, it's so useful by what she made a good point about staying on your toes, because then you can use that forward stroke, that momentum from that forward stroke to just pop yourself back up into a standing position. Whereas when you're on your knees, on both knees, you're kind of in a vulnerable position when you're trying to stand back up, especially if you're in the middle of a rapid and because you've got to kind of put your hands down on the board, and it's not as stable as going just from single knee up.
Totally.
So
yeah, I agree. It's a way more versatile stance, way to be, and kind of ninja. And honestly, something, if you don't practice paddling on your knees, on both knees, like we've talked about, it's not maybe a skill that you actually have in your toolbox to pull out in those moments of panic in bigger water. Because if you haven't practiced paddling on both of your knees, it can feel less stable. You can't see as far. It's harder to read the water. And so, for someone like yourself, or for me who came from kayaking and a canoeing background, I feel pretty comfortable down there and what the water looks like. But I have had students, and I could totally see where that feedback comes from, that it's not necessarily easier because they don't practice in that position, and things do look and feel very different.
Yeah. And with that said, there's no shame around paddling on your knees. I do not hesitate to go down on my knees when it's shallow. Nope, no problem. No qualms about that. I do not want to fall on any rocks. I am a pretty big sissy when it comes to really shallow water. So
yep, me too.
I'll be on my knees, no biggie. So
yeah,
don't feel
I like
embarrassed.
My face and my chin, and I totally agree with that. Like, yeah, if you're not feeling it and you need to be there, like no shame in it, for sure. I think that, there's always a time and a place. Awesome. So great tips to progress. And so as we're traveling through these questions, I always like to take a break. Oh, Jay here. He's one of the sisters up here. He's a great guy. You'll have to meet him one day here soon. I always like to take a break midway through our questions to hear a little bit more about my guest. And so tonight, Brittany, I know that you had an interesting summer just like everyone else. It was maybe a little bit different than a typical paddling season that we're used to, but you definitely still had some season highlights. So can you share, what was your favorite highlight?
Yeah, so I'm not going to say that. So one of the bonus, so I missed the events. Let me say this. I missed the whitewater events. I missed seeing everyone's faces. But because there were no events, the events happen during high water when the surfing is really good everywhere else. I mean, and here as well. And so because there was no events, I got to go on a surf safari. Not that I'm not ever able to, but it's hard for me to choose between the two. And I like to see all my friends and compete alongside all of my community and everything. So, but this was a unique year. Everything was canceled, so I got to go on a surf safari with some of my girlfriends, and it started off with me and Genshin. We drove in separate cars all the way up to Montana. We hit a wave up there. This was Genshin's first surf safari, so she's like over the moon. It was super fun, and I had never seen anyone try so hard at something and swim and flush so much and not give up and barely show any sign of frustration. So she was just, it was awesome. It was so fun. We went to bed early, we got up early, and we surfed all day. It was amazing. And then from there, we got lucky with flows, and we went up to the Lochsa River, and we surfed up at Pipeline. Got really lucky there. We ran into some people from Colorado that are now that were just staying at the same camp as us and are now really close friends. And so I've added to my paddling community. And I got to surf my favorite wave. And we were out there for a few weeks or a couple of weeks. And
oh, wow.
it was a dream. It was so nice. Yeah.
Oh, that wave is
that was my highlight
on my list. Yeah, I hope to surf Pipeline in the near future.
It's amazing.
Oh man,
it's beautiful.
Yeah,
it's my favorite.
I hope that I can, near future surf safari. That's manifesting that the potential to have that happen soon. Nice.
Yeah.
All right, Brittany. So we're ticking away at these questions. So number 2 on the list of the top 20 questions of 2020 is, what is that one key tip that is really going to progress my whitewater stand-up paddleboarding?
Yeah. Great question.
Right?
Rita and I share our one tip, but I have a couple tips. So I'm gonna go with one. One of mine is one that really helped me was I got some advice when I was paddling on the main salmon from Spencer Lacey, who is one of the best whitewater stand-up paddlers in the world. I mean, I think he's like cleaned the Grand Canyon or something ridiculous like that. So he told me, because we were hitting these big waves and I kept getting knocked off my board, and he's just like, get as much speed as you can going into it, and then when you're about to hit the wave, get your paddle and like stab that wave. So either try to reach your blade into the crest of the wave, or if you can, reach to the back side of the wave, and that'll help pull yourself through. So lots of speed to get that momentum, and then keeping on with that momentum and trying to just break through that wave and pull yourself through, versus, because of what a lot of people do, which is fine too. I think everyone's got their own technique and their preferred method of getting through big waves, but I'll see a lot of people paddle and then just kind of brace or rudder through the whole thing, which is fine, but you do lose your momentum. So if you're able to keep the angle that you want and to keep paddling, that's gonna be so beneficial to you, because momentum is your friend on the river. It really is.
Yeah, totally. You gotta go with the flow and take control of your own speed. So yeah, nice tip. I really like that. One of my, I guess, key tips is that, all my students have heard the one that it's keep your head up, look where you want to go. That's the number one tip that anyone gets every time, because even myself, when I'm starting to learn something new and I'm really processing it, my head inevitably goes down. So I start focusing in and my eyes go down. So the head up, that's the easy one. But my key tip that I'm going to share tonight, and then we are going to go and answer some of these surf questions. Like, we got Brittany here, so we might as well get those surf questions answered that are popping up. The key tip that I want to share is actually to create some upper and lower body separation. So get that head and upper body nice and low, engage your core, and try and keep that still as you're paddling, building your momentum going down, and allow your feet to be loose below you, so that as you're going over the waves, your lower body can react and your upper body can just stabilize. For the people that are skiers or snowboarders out there, really similar concept to how we're riding moguls and pretending that our head and our upper body is in that still place and our legs are nice and loose to enjoy the ride below us. Nice. And so in this tip theme, here we go. We're going to pull up Andrew here. He wants to know, Brittany, do you got any tips for river surfing, especially tips on sticking on the wave?
Andrew, are you river surfing in Australia? I must know this.
Yeah, come on, Andrew, tell us. Are you river surfing in Australia?
Also, I'll let you answer that. But you staying on the wave, I mean, a lot of it has to do with the wave, what kind of wave you're on, if it's retentive, if it's not. If you're having to paddle a lot, obviously it's probably not the most retentive wave. But something that I've learned is using. So once you're in surfer stance, yeah, he is surfing. Once you're in surfer stance, you want to. I like to think of my back foot as the brakes and my front foot as the gas. So, along with paddling, if you're having trouble staying in, and I would say, I mean, you don't want to be paddling super hard to stay in. Once that wave catches you, if it is a wave, it's going to hold you in there, and a lot of it's just going to be more about your weight distribution. So, waiting on your back foot when you feel like you're going too far forward or like your nose is going to purl, which is when your board will hit the front side of the trough or the wave and it goes underwater. And then using your front foot, which is the gas, which shoots you down the wave, and just kind of playing back and forth with those and walking. I do a lot of footwork when I'm on my board, trying to keep myself in. So don't be afraid to move around and try not to. I think it's really beneficial to try to just not even rely on your paddle. Try to just hold your paddle up and use just your weight to stay in, because ultimately that's going to make you a better surfer, because surfer isn't about using your paddle. Your paddle's there to, if you do feel yourself slipping off, yeah, give it some good strokes, or it's a good for brace. But you should be able to use your weight and really start to feel the wave that way.
And
Does
so
that answer your question?
yeah, I think that did a great job of answering Andrew's question and Alicia's question about using your weight to find the sweet spot in the wave. I'm going to elaborate a little bit further since you're kind of on a roll with answering these surfing questions. I'm putting you on the spot. And so, Brittany, when I feel like I'm at that stage with river surfing where I'm consistently personally catching the wave all the time, and I can get in the wave and I can have a ride and I can start to go back and forth, but I feel like I'm kind of smearing back and forth or traveling back and forth versus actually getting the board on edge. Is that because I'm, maybe riding inflatables more and teaching more? Or is that because I'm, not moving my weight around enough or something else? I'm going to let you take it away.
Man, there's a lot of factors in that. A lot of it, the board inflatables are really hard to get on edge, especially if you're using a 6-inch board. I mean, if I'm on a river shred, it is hard to get it on edge, and I have to get all the way back on my tail. So I'll have my feet pretty close together, Rita, and then I'll try to shift my weight that way. And that's when I'm saying shifting my weight, I'm pushing on the gas and I'm leading. Like you said, you want to look where you want to go. So if you're wanting to carve to the left, you're going to look to the left, you're going to lead with your shoulder, you're going to push on that gas, and it'll start driving your board over. But it is hard with really big boards and really thick boards. And it also has something to do with the wave. Like if you're on a wave that doesn't have a face, it's really small, there's no power, a lot of it's going to be just moving, like side slipping back and forth, So there's a lot of factors involved, but I think those are good things to start working on, is just even getting really far back if you're on the river shred. But if you're on like the IRS, that one you just need to really find your sweet spot and just play around with, maybe you do need to bring your feet a little closer together or further back and start working on driving, like you want to feel yourself get to the top of the wave where you're almost about to flush. So you push on the brakes to get yourself to the top, and then you push on your front foot and you're driving that board down whichever way you're trying to go, whether it's left or right. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, right? It sounds really, I was working on that in the ocean in the clinic I took with Norm this fall and starting to drive my board in that environment. So that does make sense. Unfortunately, the flows on the can have been a little wonky right now. So I haven't been able to actually get out and apply those new skills that I learned in the ocean and try them. But it does make sense a lot. And I think for me, I have this like super wide, steezy stance, and I don't know where that came from. And I am trying to get my feet closer together and evolve, how I stand on the board, because I do think that will help make, the carving part easier for me.
Right, because you want less resistance, less friction to try to get that nose over. So the wider you are, probably the more board is going to be in the water and more edge is going to be in the water that you're trying to move against the surface of the water. So if you're further back, you've got a little bit of a tighter stance that lifts some of that up and that takes away some of that friction. So now you're able to move a little bit easier.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense, right? Just less board in the water. I like what Alicia said there. She's like, yeah, I can totally imagine it. Now I just got to get my body to do it. Brittany, what is one of your, I'm going to sneak in one more question here. I'm totally taking advantage that I got you live.
I got all the time.
I love it. So Brittany, when we're thinking about imagining doing something new on the river, because in addition to really trying to spraying some buckets and dialing in my carves, I am going to start to want to learn some tricks someday, as well as I know a lot of my students that I see commenting along the side, they're in that world where they're going to start to want to do some tricks. So how did you start to progress into that trick world? Was it visualization? Was it watching other people? How did you start to, do some tricks on the board?
I was watching other people. Yeah, I mean, I had people like Zach Hughes, one of the co-founders of Badfish. I had Mike Tavares. I had Spencer, Miles Harvey, like really, really good surfers to learn from. And I learned a lot from watching them and from, my first trick on a stand-up too, if you're on a hard board, first trick or first step is like these little side grinds. And from there, it's like a progression into doing spins. And I remember Zach taking me, we were standing on the grass and he had this old, I think it was like a wake surfing board or something like that. And he had a stick. Yeah, a stick or a paddle or something. And we were in the grass and we were pretending, no, sorry, we weren't in the grass. We were on the concrete because it spins really nicely. So he helped me imagine helped walk me through the steps of what I needed to do to start learning to spin. And that helped me learn the body mechanics of initiating spins and stuff. And man, it took me a really long time to learn it, but that's a nice way to start, is to find some, like, you can use an old skateboard deck or something and just practice those spins and watch videos. There's tons of stuff with Miles Harvey and Zach on the Badfish YouTube channel, and watching a ton helps. And then filming yourself and watching those videos and comparing them, it helps a lot.
I think that's a good one. That was something that I definitely wanted to start doing, was videoing, taping myself and trying to do a little bit of self coaching and self practice. And I like that idea of trying to set up an indoor sort of station right now while the flows are kind of wonky, to get practicing and visualizing what my next steps might be. Because right now there's not a lot of people that are actually SUP surfing and doing tricks in this area. All right, so before we get to that final question, we'll answer Alicia's here. What kind of training do you do to improve your balance, Brittany?
Do I train?
You could say you go paddling.
Yeah, I'd say I just paddle a lot. I paddle a lot, and I used to have fun with like balance boards and stuff, but I think a lot of it was just paddling a lot and skateboarding. I've always been into board sports, and I think that's helped me. Like before this, I was skateboarding and snowboarding and wakeboarding, so that's kind of been, I mean, I've always had good balance, but I would say just getting out on your board as much as you can, and just practicing all different kinds of things that challenge your balance, especially when you're on a flat water section. I'll practice just being on one leg and putting my foot in the center of the board and trying to paddle on one side. I'll just do weird stuff like that to keep challenging my balance. And yeah, I think it adds up.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't have a better answer.
No, I think it's a great answer, because for me, that's what I do is I just try and push my boundaries, be a little bit silly, maybe go out. Oh, go ahead.
Well, it made me think, like, going out and paddling little boards. Natalie, Brittany hates the gym. I do. I hate the gym.
Yeah.
But going out and paddling little boards helps a ton. I would take my river surfer, and when I'm not surfing, I'm trying to paddle it in the eddy, and I'm trying to do ferries on that little board and trying to do peel outs and stuff like that on the smallest board I can find that will still float me. That helps a ton.
Totally. And yeah, like Pete says, core strength. But you're right, Brittany. Honestly, this year I found that I was paddling maybe a little bit more mellow waters more often, just because I was really enjoying the community that I was in. So I'd take out the IRS and I would try and do everything that, all the drops everyone was sending, all the ferries everyone was making. It was the challenge. It was like, okay, I got to do it on the IRS. And it was also great when there was a wave, because I had like the perfect board to go for a really rad surf.
Yeah, for those who don't know, the IRS is the inflatable river surfer. It's a badfish board, and it's got thinner rails, and it's a great board for that exact reason. You can paddle it downstream. Maybe not the biggest guy can. I don't know. Maybe you can. I'd be really impressed.
Yeah, me
but
too.
To be able to paddle it downstream, and then you can just catch little waves all along the way and have a bit of a challenge. So, and it's nice because then you can loan it out to your friends or your friends' kids, and you don't have to worry about it.
Oh, totally. And like, or if you're like Alicia and Andre, then you can have the kids needed some boards. So that meant mom and dad got some surfboards to go play on as well.
Nice.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Alicia. Yeah, always pushing yourself. Yeah, those guys have been pushing themselves too. All right, guys. So now the time has come. We are going to answer the number one question. And it is a little bit of a silly question. But I am amazed at how many times people ask this question and expect like a legitimate, solid answer, or like a specific number. And so question number one, the number one question is, how many times am I really going to swim? So Brittany, do you still swim? How many times are you gonna swim?
I'm a professional swimmer. I'm probably a swimmer before I'm a stand-up paddler. I mean, I just swim all the time. But I love to swim. Sometimes, well, this is not stand-up paddling related, but me and my friend Gentian will just put our PFDs on when we are, well, I don't know, when it's too low or we're bored, and we'll just float down for like a 2-mile stretch just in our PFDs and just swim. Or we'll get out and we'll swim the features that we're surfing just to change things up a bit. So I think if you're stand-up paddling on the river, you just have to be okay with swimming, and you just have to accept that that's just how it's going to be, that you're going to swim. And you might swim less if you are just, paddling the same section, not really challenging yourself. But I think swimming is good because it means that you are challenging yourself, you are pushing yourself, and you are improving.
Yeah, totally, right? Like if you're, everyone when in skiing, when I was a skiing instructor, I always say, well, if you're not falling, like you're not learning, you're not trying hard enough, you're not pushing yourself. And that's the same with whitewater SUP. Like, yeah, we can go and float down a river or pick a mellow river and, keep our hair dry. But if it's a hot July weekend in Canada, that would be foolish. Why not, mess around and try and challenge your friends to see who could do the biggest pivot turn or who could surf the wave the longest. And you know what? It's great to fall and it should be fun. And as long as you're falling and you're learning how to do it safely, and that comes back to our when do we paddle on our knees? Well, when it's shallow and we don't want to fall. But swimming is awesome. Yeah. And I am just like you, Brittany, like I love swimming. And I strongly believe that if you're not prepared to swim a rapid after, like in the first move, right, then maybe you shouldn't be paddling it. Or if you're like, man, I really can't swim this one, then it might be a time to walk that day, because swimming is something that you need to embrace. And there are times when I go in and the first move isn't even the hardest move, but it knocks me off and I end up swimming through the whole show. So for me, if I'm not ready to swim something, then it might be time for me to walk around and take it in that day and try it another day.
Yeah, I mean, I look at every rapid as though I'm going to swim it and not paddle it. When I'm scouting a new rapid or something, I'm like, okay, if I swim here, what am I going to do? If I swim there, where am I going to swim to? What side of the river do I need to be on? What features are here? And so I'm looking at, because especially when you're swimming, it's hard to get oriented. It's hard to know where you're at. So just looking at a rapid from the perspective of a swimmer will ensure that you're going to be more prepared when you're out there. It's still going to be disorienting no matter what, but at least you have some idea. And just like Rita said, if I'm not prepared to swim a rapid, if I don't feel comfortable about swimming a rapid, then I just walk around it. There's no point.
Totally. Here, Andrew's been killing it with the questions tonight. Any falling techniques we suggest, as in when you go to fall in, what do you guys do to brace and position wise? I personally, I tell everybody to super glue their feet to their board and do their best to fall flat. There's a ton of awesome wipeout shots with my shoes just out of the water. And that's because if I'm falling flat, my, protected parts like my life jacket and my booty are what's hitting the water and what's under the water first versus, my feet. So that's my biggest thing, is to just fall flat. What about you, Britt?
Yeah, same. Fall flat, and try to, if you can, fall on the board as much as possible. Try to stay attached to your craft or as close to your craft as you can. And then as far as bracing and position goes, I mean, it's really just whatever goes in the moment, I think it gets to a point where, and sometimes there's been times where I've braced when I should have just fallen in, where I'll do a low back brace, and those are so hard on your shoulders, and I just hung on so much just because they look so cool or whatever, and I didn't want to fall in. But so I mean, I'll just do whatever I need to do in that moment, high brace, low brace, back brace, and yeah, just hope for the best.
And so, Brittany, I think, well, Jay wants to know here quick, we'll do a quick preference. I know my preference. I think it might be the same as yours. Preference for a straight leash versus a coil leash. What's in that whole idea of swimming, falling off your board, recovery? What's your preference there, Brittany?
Yeah, I don't have a really good answer to this question, just because I understand the appeal to both. But personally, I prefer a straight leash because, and the only reason is because I can pull my board back to me really quick. Whereas with coils, there's a lot of give. And I do feel like I get more tangled up in coils when I'm swimming, but I get more tangled up in my straight leashes when I'm on my board. So my straight leash will always end up underfoot or wrapped around the tail of my board and caught on my fin or something like that. And that can be really annoying as well. So I think it's all about personal preference. And I think the shorter the coil leash, the better. I've always also seen there used to be, I don't know if people are still making them, but the straight leash on both ends with a coil in the middle. And that kind of helps lift it up a little bit, but I don't know. I still like straight leashes. Coils, I get all wrapped up in them and
yeah, I would agree with that. It's I always got more tangled in the coil leash, and then the coils would like interlock with each other, so it would make loops around me versus the straight leash. I could at least always feel where it was if I needed to, do something about unwrapping it or something. And so in that, thinking about, someone asked me in this concept of swimming the other day, they're like, Rita, is there ever a situation where when you're swimming in a rapid or you fell off your board in a rapid, you're choosing to push your board away and just swim it all out versus trying to get back on your board? And I said, yeah, I'm sure there is actually a situation that I would be in, but most of the time, my personal priority is to get back on my equipment because then my body's out of the water and I can move around. What are your thoughts on that, Britt?
I think it's situational. I think there's been times where getting on the time that it would take to get me back on my board and to reorient myself and to get my paddle in the water would put me at risk of running into some hazard, like a rock or log jam or something of that nature. So in those instances, like, I have a map drawn in my head of what the rapid looks like. And sometimes I just know, okay, I'm going to go right into this rock. So I just need to swim away from it. So that's what I'll do. And I'll just release my leash and just go and hope that the board meets me at the bottom. In big, fluffy rapids, sometimes I'll just ride it out just because in the water because I like to swim too.
Yeah.
And I can have just as much fun, like just bobbing up and down in the waves. So it just depends. But if I'm in a shallow river and I know that me getting back on my board is not going to put me into a dangerous situation, then I'm going to just get right back on my board. And ideally, you want to be on your board. That's going to be your safest place in most instances, unless it's getting pinned or, it's all situational, really.
Totally. I think that's the best thing, is that it is all situational. Awesome. So that wraps it up. Those are all of the top 12 questions of 2020, all the way down to the last one of how many times we're going to swim. Really embrace it. Keep swimming. Swim more than you paddle more than you swim sometimes. But I make sure that I get my hair wet every single time I go paddling. Otherwise, it didn't count. So, it's nice to get in the water and have some fun. Andrew said, "Oh yeah, he's got a lot of questions, but maybe we can connect with Andrew after to keep answering some more questions about some more leashes he's curious about." And so before we fully wrap it up and shut it down for the evening, I know that it's winter right now and we both live in the mountains, so we might not be doing too much paddling anytime soon. But what are you looking forward, Brittany, as we start to transition and move into 2021?
Well, I'm really looking forward to what River to River has in store. And Natalie said in the comments she's going to put together She's putting together a 30-day.
Oh, here, I'm pulling it up. There we go.
Yeah, a 30-day workout routine to get everyone ready for surfing and paddling season.
Nice.
So we're going to be doing a lot just to be involved in the community and get people excited for the season. And we've got some really fun events coming up that we will announce soon, some women-specific events and some collaborations that are really exciting. So I think ultimately I'm just really excited for River to River stuff and teaching again and getting more people out on the water and hopefully seeing everyone, because I miss your face, Rita.
Yeah, I don't have a mullet anymore, Britt.
Oh, thank goodness.
You're gonna be so happy next time you see me.
Oh, I hated that thing.
No more mullet. Yeah, no, I'm really excited to see what comes up next for you guys. I'm excited to follow along. I'm excited to listen to the new episode of the podcast, probably during Buddy's walk tomorrow. And yeah, thank you for joining me. Thank you for helping me answer those questions. This wraps it up for 2020 for me. Oh, here we go. There's some love coming for the mullet. It wasn't hated by everyone.
Crazy. I also want to say,
go for it.
Thanks to everyone for asking questions and being involved and interacting with us. It's really fun, especially since we're all cooped up right now, and it's just nice to tap into the community. And if anyone has any questions about gear or river to river stuff or instructional stuff, whatever, feel free to reach out to me, Natalie, I'm sure Rita, any of us.
Yeah, totally. I think it's honestly, that's part of the reason I love doing the live chats, is because everyone tunes in, pops their heads out, listens, asks questions. And yeah, it makes me feel like paddling season is still happening a little bit, even though, like we said, we are all cooped up. And yeah, it is really exciting, and I'm excited to see where it grows and evolves. And I can't wait until we can all hug again. I'm really looking forward to hugs. There will be some big hugs coming everyone's way when we are allowed to do that. All right, guys. So that wraps it up for 2020. So I'm going to take a break over the Christmas holidays, and I will see you guys all back in January. If you stay tuned on my Facebook, my Instagram, you'll get to see what exciting stuff is coming your way in January, but I'm not letting the cat out of the bag yet. So stay tuned, and I hope everyone has a happy holidays and stays safe and has a happy new year. So thank you, Brittany, for joining us. And we will see everyone. Yeah, we'll see everyone hopefully soon. Thanks, guys. Great night.
Happy holidays. Bye.
Happy holidays. Bye.